This past Sunday, we left off with God promising hope and restoration, even as the people of Israel were being slaves in a foreign country. And that left us with a lot of lingering questions. One, how is God going to restore them? Two, now that there are no kings in Israel, how is he going to fulfill his promise to David of a dynasty that would last forever? And three, how does that promise of restoration and hope fit together with all the rest of the promises that God has given us so far? To help find our answer, we look at another prophet named Isaiah and see how God spoke his word to him to answer those questions. You see, Isaiah lived right before the southern kingdom of Judah was conquered by the Babylonians. And God warned him that judgment was coming. But even though the judgment was coming, there would still be a ray of hope in the midst of the struggle. Isaiah 6:11 says this. Isaiah was crying out to God, saying that people are not listening to you. You say judgment is coming. And he says this, "How long, O Lord?" Meaning, how long would the people refuse to listen to God, even though God was warning them? And God responded, he said, "Until cities lie waste without inhabitant, and houses without people, and the land is a desolate waste. And the Lord removes people far away, and the forsaken places are many in the midst of the land. And though a tenth remain in it, it will be burned again, like a terebinth or an oak, whose stump remains when it's felled. The holy seed is its stump." You see, the people were going to go through a purifying fire, but God would preserve the faithful, and though all would seem lost, a seed would spring up from the seemingly dead stump of David. Though the sons of David might not be kings anymore, they still carry his blood and they carry his promise. Now remember, the word seed in Hebrew is the same as offspring. And where have we seen that word before? We talked about it last week when we were layering the cake, right? That we see it in the promise to Eve and Adam. We see it in the promise to Abraham, and we see it in the promise to David. So God's not only renewing the promise of saying there are kings to come. They may not be actively sitting on a throne now, but a king will come from the line of David. But he's adding to another layer to this promise of hope. He then expands that, not only saying that don't worry, the king is there, he will be revealed when the time comes, but he expands that promise. He says, here's what he will look like. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 and 7, God told Isaiah to tell the people this. He says, "For to us a child is born, and to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this." You see, this is no ordinary person. This is the anointed one, the Messiah, a king from the line of David, but something more. The titles describing him are descriptors of the Lord, of God himself, aren't they? Because the king to come will be God himself in human flesh. He will come to confront evil and injustice, to set right the wrongs of humanity, to rescue not only Israel, but the world, and even creation itself, once and for all. Next Sunday, we finally get to the arrival of that king. Spoiler alert, though, it won't happen the way we think. So I can't wait for you to join me and everyone here next Sunday as we find out who is the king, what does he look like, and how is he showing up. We'll see you next Sunday to find out.